here's the top 5, guys. It got a bit tense at the end of the last one, as we dealt with Blonde and all that kind of stuff. So in this, we're going to be throwing to Nadia. And in fact, why don't I start by throwing to Nadia now for her top 5, her 5th best film of the year. And her 5th best film of the year, we're going to hear why, is Blonde.
Oh, wow.
Sorry,
just
Mum.
winding me up.
It was strange, wasn't it? We went on such a journey with it. After we first watched it, we thought one thing, then all the press that we read afterwards and all the cancelling of people and everything, we got really angry about that and even more defensive of what we thought at the beginning. And then in the end, I was just a mulch of so many different thoughts and feelings about the film, which I suppose is art. Makes you think lots of different things, and pushed and pulled me in what I did actually believe about the whole topic. In the end, I did believe that it was very exploitative of Marilyn Monroe. I believe that the writer could have done. Sorry, just had Nanny Died. Such a big blowing of her nose.
I know.
In the end, strangely, though it's in my top 5, I did at the end, when we were doing the initial review of this, feel that the writer had exploited her, because why did she do this story of this person? It's because she knew it would get the attention that it did. But that being said, I thought it was a masterpiece at the same time. If you took out all the horrors that I have about Marilyn and the way that she's using it, it was just such a beautiful film. I mean, just everything was like a painting. And I just loved so much the way that the director brought us into each one of those iconic shots.
Oh, the photos.
Oh God, and I found it heartbreaking. I thought she was just exquisite, the actress, and I feel so sad all that she's gone through since, because she's just an actress at the end.
I think she should be nominated for it.
I do. I think she was quite extraordinary. She was more like Marilyn than Marilyn.
Maddie, what's your top 5?
My 5th one is Licorice Pizza.
Yay!
Which came out right at the
What
beginning
was
of
the
the
first
year.
film?
Yeah,
of the
I
year?
forgot that was
Yeah.
last year now. But yeah, no, I loved Licorice Pizza. I kind of went in really clueless to it all, and like all of you guys had already seen it, and then I went and saw it with you, and it was your second time. And I thought just all of the performances in it were just incredible. Especially what's the name of the main boy and girl in it?
Oh, it's
it's Philip Seymour
Cooper
Hoffman's
Hoffman.
child.
Cooper
I just thought he was so charming.
He
Well, they were
was.
both so charming, but like
She
I
was
especially
too, wasn't
liked
she?
him.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know, I like her.
He was
Alana
lovely.
Haim.
Yeah, he was, and their chemistry and everything on screen was just perfection, and I just loved the kind of idea of it all. It was such a random concept.
Yeah.
And it was
A
such
real
a
good independent
like
film,
proper
yeah,
indie film,
exactly,
and I love it. I love a good indie
And it
film.
really took you back to the era. I mean, for Paul Thomas Anderson directing, it really took you back
Yeah, I
to the
really
70s.
believed that it was in the 70s.
Yeah,
'cause
in a
he-
way that I felt Thingy in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in
Once Upon a Time.
No,
yeah.
this is what I mean. There's so
Quite
many
popular.
films where like you can tell that where the screen, where they're filming it, it's all set up to be part
Yes,
of the era.
within
And then
frame.
as soon as it's out of frame, it's all just
Yeah.
like a studio.
Yeah.
But with Licorice Pizza, like you genuinely felt like that film was made in the 70s.
Yeah.
Remember
And-
Bradley Cooper? That
Yeah,
whole
Bradley
scene with
Cooper's
his-
whole
hell, yes, so
cameo
good.
was so
He's
good.
so brilliant the way he stomps around.
But this is
So
what I mean,
good.
like literally everybody in Licorice Pizza is amazing. Like I loved all of the little bit characters in it as well. And yeah, honestly, it was just a great film.
Good choice. Good choice number 5. Mum, what's yours?
I've done the same thing. I've got 2. You're just going to have to put
Oh,
up with
Mum.
it. I'm sorry, but then when I get to 4, the last 4 are just one.
It's all right, I've
But
done
I
it.
had to do it for 5. My 5 was Bones and All. Which we've seen.
Okay.
It had to go quite high
I didn't
up.
think you were going to put it up.
No.
I didn't think you were going to put it on.
No, well, I happened to see this film more than once.
Ah,
And
Yeah.
what's the other
having
one?
interrogated the book and everything's not quite the same, but I just thought everything in it was good. Yeah, Mark
Including
Rylance
Mark Rylance,
particularly.
yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one with it is After Sun.
Okay, you didn't like it.
Well, no, it wasn't that I didn't like it. It's just that it spoke to you. The boys spoke to you far more than they spoke to me. The girl, I thought, was absolutely incredible. Have you seen it, Matt?
No.
Paul Mescal, the one where he plays the dad, and they're on holiday with his
yeah,
daughter. It's
yeah.
been
No, I
huge.
want to see it.
And the whole thing of like a teenage girl and being on the edge of groups of other girls and not being able to, and the whole budding
film looks
sexuality thing.
emotional.
It's so, and it's also so impressionistic. So I love the way it was filmed. So you go in and out of shot, you see him doing what he's doing, and you don't know why.
Yeah.
You see him very upset, and you don't know really why.
Yeah.
And no, I thought it was an excellent film. Yeah, no, I thought it was a good film.
Right. My number 5 is The Quiet Girl.
Oh,
I thought
right.
this was quietly sensational.
Yeah, I like it.
And this is the Irish language film, and starring the girl Catherine Clinch. It was amazing, and I was surprised by this. And this sort of, it seems to be the year for what's the other one? For films about fathers and their relationship with daughters. And I thought this film was sensational. It's about a girl who is adopted by sort of friends of the family because the main family is struggling, they can't afford to look after her, and so she goes to this other family. And it becomes apparent that this family that she's gone to have lost their son in a tragic accident. And so she becomes a sort of more than just a foster child and more than a child. She says virtually nothing,
Yeah.
The Quiet Girl. And I've never seen a film where an actress, and a young actress, tells you so much about belonging or not belonging, being present. It made me think an awful lot about all my daughters, about moments in their lives of feeling or asking themselves what's their place in this situation and in relationship to adults and parents and all that. And I thought the most moving aspect of it was the father's relationship with the girl, which took such an interesting turn and was presented
The sort
so
of stepfather,
subtly.
you
Yeah, the
mean,
stepfather,
one
and
of
how
those
he became so attached to her, but because of his masculinity, he
Yeah.
had to hold it at arm's length.
It was done so gently. It was
So
done
gently. It's a top draw example of
It's
how
a-
you don't have to overwrite a script to get a sensational film. I think it was just so astonishingly, surprisingly good.
Oh, good.
I
I'm
loved
so
it. I
pleased.
absolutely loved it, and I would recommend anyone on a Sunday afternoon to watch it. It's not depressing, but
No, not
it's
at all.
It's so
just
contemplative.
quiet.
It's a quiet film about a quiet
But also,
girl.
let me just say at this point, there are 2 standout performances by young female actors in that, whatever
And-
her
and
name
The
is.
Wonder.
And in The Wonder,
Yeah, right.
who maybe the girl is even younger, they're
Yeah, yeah.
astonishing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Number 4, Maddie.
Oh, what's my number 4?
You're never going to guess what mine is.
The Innocents.
Oh, good
Where
choice.
did that come from?
Good choice. That's in my special. That's one of my top. I've got
I
that
completely
highlighted
forgot.
in my horrors, but I haven't got it in
wow.
my top 10.
Yeah,
oh,
no,
wow,
I
I'm
really
pleased.
enjoyed it, and it was like an odd one because it was like some of us were just chilling and we couldn't find a film to watch, and then we just kind of scrolled past it, and then Nanny Di was like, "Oh my god, The Innocents! I think you guys will like that," you know. And then we all settled down and watched it, and literally, I loved it so much. I thought it was such a
Clever.
good horror, clever
Yeah,
horror, original
clever.
horror, so clever. Because I feel like as well when children are included in a horror film, it's always kind of the same, where they just like
Yeah.
have a friend that nobody can see, and it's like the classic horror trope. But this was like, I properly was scared of these children.
Yes.
And like that's, you know, they were eerie, and
That's
I thought they were such good
absolutely true.
actors.
They were
Like
sensational.
these children performing better than some full-grown adults, and
Yeah.
I really cared about them, and yeah, it was a big surprise because I
Yeah.
hadn't even heard about it or seen a trailer.
Again,
or
another
anything.
Nordic film, isn't it?
Yeah,
Another
that's
Norwegian.
true. There was a point where I was scared of the child.
Yeah,
The child
the
with
boy
the-
was so
yeah.
scary. Yeah,
That's
but
so true.
I just thought it was just such a like entertaining watch, and I thought it was.
And very simple in its.
Basically,
Yeah,
telling
nobody
the
really
story.
talked about. It's kind of gone under the radar. a
I'm
little
so
bit.
pleased you put that in the top 10. It deservedly, it deserves to be there. I think it's just so
Mm-hmm.
good. Mum, what's your number 4?
You're not going to believe this. I don't know why I'm saying
Try
it.
us.
Look at me shaking. All Quiet on the Western Front.
Oh. Fantastic. Number 4.
Yeah.
Quelle surprise, no? Tell us why.
Because it's one of the best war films I've ever seen.
Right.
With a stonkingly brilliant main young actor.
Yeah.
And it's like 1917, but told from the opposite sort of point of view. And it's not a single take or anything sort of clever like that.
Yeah.
But it's just the performances. And it is so shocking. And it's sort of maybe because I saw it this year, and it's even more shocking because of what's going on in Ukraine. And one felt there was some sort of such shocking scenes where you see sort of the, what happened in day to day. And I had no idea what it was. So for me, it was a complete surprise when the tanks came in. And I saw it in a cinema where sometimes the noise levels, you know, when you feel the whole thing shaking, and I was like, what can happen next? And the relationship he builds up with his fellow conscripts, or whatever you call it. And the fact that it's so sad that he wants to go to war, and they can't even find him a uniform that hasn't been worn before by somebody who's died.
Tragic.
It's so
I haven't
tragic.
seen it.
Yeah, no. And to give a shout out to the lead actor that you referred to, it's Felix Camera.
I thought it was great, great.
Daniel Bruhl was in there too.
Daniel Bruhl doing his stuff.
Let's go to Nadia for hers, which is the Banshees of Inisherin.
Oh!
You got in with the Banshees.
Go for it, Nads.
Oh, we loved this film, didn't we? We went as a family to watch it, and I have to say, I was thinking about this just 10 minutes ago. I was left feeling very sad after it. It really made its mark on me, because I think loneliness, true loneliness, I think is probably something I dread the most. And I tend to think of that more if I'm old and I'm lonely. And just this whole beautiful story about loneliness and about sibling love and about the need for each person to survive in their own way, however brutal it was. It was just a brilliantly told story. It could easily be number one. The acting was astonishing. It was so beautiful, that island. Kind of like part of me was being pulled apart because I was sort of yearning to live a bit of that life where everything was just so simple and so stripped back. But it was just so agonisingly painful to watch, wasn't it? And this relationship between these two men and just the brutality, the fingers.
Yeah, it's
I mean, when we saw the
humour.
I didn't really think they was going to chop his bloody fingers off. And every time he chopped another finger off, I was more shocked than the finger before. I just couldn't believe it. So it was about, I suppose why it wouldn't get right up there is a bit too horrific for me.
Right.
The fingers coming off.
But it was also about the big taboo of friendships. And in
Well,
a sense,
exactly,
that was the
which I've always been a complete advocate of. I don't think you have to have friendships for life, and I think too often people are made to feel bad if they don't have a group of friends right from primary school that they love through till the day they die. It doesn't work like that. Why does platonic love have to last longer than any other kind of love? It's just love, isn't it?
My number 4 is Nitram, or Nitram. Nitram. I thought this was just fucking brilliant. I thought this was an excellent film, starring, what's his name? Starring Caleb Landry Jones.
That's
Caleb Landry
it.
Jones.
Yeah.
This is brilliant. This is about the tragic story of the Tasmanian shooter who I think shot Port Arthur massacre, where he shot about 13 people, didn't he, at the end? And really, this is the origin story of his sort of slow build towards this sort of, you know, mass killing.
Yeah.
I thought it all pivots around Caleb's performance, and it's one of those Australian films when Australian cinema is good, a bit like last year was Baby Teeth.
Yeah.
There's something so sort of spare and spacious about these films, and they allow for such wonderful performances and for actors.
They're matter of fact as well. They don't sort of belabor,
Absolutely.
Big round of bush.
They don't show off about.
No.
I mean,
and I just thought Judy Davis was excellent as his mum. I
Yeah.
thought Essie Davis was great. She was also in Baby Teeth as the curious opera singer, kind of almost kind of romantic interest for him.
Yeah.
And I just, again, you were left.
everyone.
Oh, and the dad was heartbreaking. And I was just, it just left such an impression on me. I was thinking about it for days on end afterwards.
the quiet way they built up to
The quiet way they built up to the violence, and the matter of factness, and the fact of, you know, again, these are spoiler chats because we've done the reviews, you know, the way they cut off at the point that they cut off.
Yeah.
And he's so matter of fact at the
Yeah.
end, and yet not matter of fact, and yet you feel that he has just been more and more ostracised, more and more, and it just does
So
that thing
heartbreaking.
of giving a three-dimensionality to even the most psychotic of people.
Yeah,
Or
standout
people who do-
performance.
Standout performance, which won't get recognised by any of the mainstream.
It's too
Because it's too esoteric.
alternative.
Yeah, too niche. But
Yeah.
Nitram was my number 4. Number 3 for me is Licorice Pizza.
That's high.
I echo everything you guys say. I just thought fantastic performances. As I said, it evoked time, it evoked place. It's coming for a bit of stick for people suggesting that the relationship between Cooper Hoffman and the girl was
come on.
paedophilic.
Come on.
I got
What
into,
was their age gap?
well, he passes the legal
I remember
age for
she's
sex,
older.
doesn't he?
She about
After she shows him her
20.
boobs. my argument on that is that the film actually observes the age limit,
Yeah.
and he only ever does anything with her once he's past the actual age of consent. For me,
But
the
it
stand-
wasn't. Yeah,
It's
that didn't even
point,
kind. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it takes us close to that at all. And
No,
anyway, and this is a different era as well. So, but two things that I just want to give a shout out to. You kind of mentioned it. Bradley Cooper,
Yeah,
just
it's
brilliant.
hilarious.
The agent scene in it
Oh,
is
yeah.
quite phenomenal.
Oh,
One
the
of the
agent.
greatest 2 or 3 minutes in cinema. If you want to see a performance in just a close up of
woman
the
was
face, the
brilliant.
woman was great. And Sean Penn as an absolute
Oh, yeah.
psycho motorbike riding
I'm not,
egotistical.
that bit was my least favourite part of the film.
I
It
couldn't
just was
love him.
too like.
It was
I was
too
like,
weird.
what?
Ridiculous, yeah.
Well,
I mean, I
just
went
see-
with it,
Yeah,
but-
yeah.
Yeah.
But Sean Penn's incredibly sort of creviced face.
Craggy.
is
True.
Craggy to the
craggy.
point.
It was just a great start to the year, and I don't
Yeah.
want it to lose impetus because it was right at the start
No,
of the year.
that's
So
very
it had a
true.
huge impact. So yeah, that's at number 3 for me.
Nice.
So let's go to Nadia, and she's chosen Belfast.
Oh,
Yeah, you guys
wow.
liked it.
I remember that I loved it. I remember I loved all the actors in it. Again, we've had some great performances all year, haven't we? Actually,
Ensemble cast as well.
I have such a tender heart for Kenneth Branagh. I think he's an all-round bloody fantastic man. I know people that have worked with him on movies and say he's the most extraordinary director. He's the director actors want to work with. Always gives everyone another take completely for themselves. He's very, very generous, and you could feel it. And obviously, he had an extraordinary relationship with the young boy. And I thought it was a really good history lesson as well, actually. I keep saying I want the girls to watch it because I thought it laid it out really well. It was great drama and humour and beautiful relationships, and you just felt like you'd been in Ireland and you'd had a trip to Ireland and you'd lived in that street and you'd had a cuppa in that neighbourhood. I felt it was very immersive for me.
I thought it was remarkably
And I
feel
loved it being
good
in
for
black and
saying
white.
it was about something quite bad and frightening.
Yeah. I can't remember what the name of that beautiful actress, the one that plays the mother to the little boy. I was just absolutely transfixed by her. I'd never seen her in anything before, and I want to see her in other things. I think she used to be a model, which doesn't often transfer well, but she was just so beautiful, but so good and so raw. And I loved the relationship between the grandfather. I love watching relationships with grandparents and small children. So it just had a bit of everything in it, really, for me.
So you've had 2 black and whites and 2 Irish films at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh, God.
it's weird, isn't it? Thanks, Nads. That was
Yeah.
really interesting. So what's your number 3, Mark?
Finally, and it could have been higher. Triangle of Sadness.
Ah. I think good that it's in there.
I should bloody well think so. I feel like I've had to defend this film, but oh God, it's just what can I say about it?
Well, say something.
It's a 3-act fest of. It's one of the best dissections, I think, personally, of class I've ever seen.
Well, lots of people agree with you.
I still really
mean,
want to watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, the first half, forgetting the first act, but the first half is sort of the ruling class, so-called, and the second act or the third act on the island is a reversal of that. But the way that it is done is not without its faults. There's long years, as they say. There are some standout hysterical scenes. Woody Harrelson and the Russian oligarch
Well, I love the
politics
Russians.
as the shit
Yeah.
goes
I mean,
down.
Maddie will love that actor.
Incredible grand Gwinnell moments where the whole boat floats floating in shit, and it eventually does go down. It's just astonishing. I actually think he's a genius, and although his films are often, what's the word that you all say? They're not. Oh, what's the word? they don't all stand as a piece. It's very
Uneven.
uneven. Thank you. And that's always true of his films, but in a way that makes it even better. I've seen this film 3 times.
Nice, Mum. You've
There is. I've had little to do this year. The first act is maybe slightly problematic, but yeah, I loved it.
Well, I'm pleased to hear that
Absolutely.
because I mean I gave my review and I was, for me it wasn't that it was bad, I just found it disappointing.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't what I was expecting.
No.
Maddie, number 3.
My number 3 is the Banshees of Inisherin.
Hey! So much. Oh no, you won.
Yeah, I absolutely just loved it so much, and I saw it twice. It was really interesting because the first time I saw it was really funny, and it still was on the second watch, but it was really funny. We were laughing the whole way through, and like the whole screening was and everything. And then the second time I watched it, I found it so much more sad. Like I found it
so
heartbreaking the first time as well, just because his character is just heartbreaking. But I don't know, I just found it a lot more sad on the second watch. I just found it really interesting that it was like a completely different experience watching it the two different times.
It really was.
But I just thought all of the performances were amazing. Obviously, I love the director and like every film that he's done, but I just love his writing style. And it's like, it's one of those films where you don't want to laugh too long at one of the jokes because then you'll miss the next
such
one.
a nice point.
So you kind of want to just stay silent so that you get everything out of it. But yeah, all of the performances, the way everybody performed with each other,
including the donkey,
even the music just suited the film so much, and the setting and everything. I honestly just enjoyed every second of that film. It was just a crack.
Well,
I
there you go. I
absolutely
mean,
agree.
absolutely agree. Thanks for that one, Maddie. Okay, so number 2, Mum, why don't you kick off?
Banshees. So everything, I second everything that Maddie's just said,
Yes.
including the donkey. I mean, it was just, every line in it was just standout. Their relationship, which is very different to their relationship in Bruges, but it's just so
It's almost
good.
a reversal, isn't it?
It is. But
And
also,
it made you like, what's his face?
Oh, yes.
The actor that you
Barry
dated
Keoghan.
before. Barry
Barry
Keoghan.
Barry Keoghan, who was absolutely
Went from one of
astonishing.
your least to your favourite, actually.
Yeah, oh, he was so, are you wild, Siobhan?
He was
Are you wild?
heartbreaking in
Are
it
you
as
wild?
well.
He was just amazing.
Everyone broke my heart in that film.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
And
Maybe
among-
Brendan Gleeson a little less, because you're just like, for fuck's
Oh
sake.
yeah, he was
And,
weird.
and apparently people left at the violent bit. They stayed. Some
Really?
people
What, left the cinema?
left the cinema.
What, when he
the
cut his
first,
finger
first
off?
finger.
I loved that dark twist on it as well.
Yeah,
because
right,
if you were
he
to,
often does that. Martin.
that's why I love his film so
Yeah.
much. But if you were to walk into that film blindly,
Yeah, that's
after what the
happened, I
first
think.
bit was,
Yeah.
you'd be like,
Which
what
is a
the
gentle
heck?
comedy, and then
Yeah,
suddenly,
that's why I love it.
and he does threaten that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And the sister is brilliant.
She's
Absolutely
Kerry
brilliant.
Condon.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Great,
So
well-
second, it could have been first if it wasn't for first being so wonderful.
Okay, well, sending off to Nadia, her number 2 is The Worst Person in the World.
Whoa!
Oh, wow, that's
whoa!
This was a bit of a roller coaster for us, this, wasn't it? I remember when I first was watching it, I think I said this in our initial review, I found it really, I thought, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to sit through this because of the Norwegian. I hated the sound of the Norwegian accent. I wasn't used to it. Very much like when I first heard Portuguese, I was like, I'm in Portugal. I went, I don't like. Anyway, I ended up loving it. All of the family, we all love foreign films, don't we? Hate the dubbing. And it was just, yeah, again, to be immersed into the Norwegian way of life, this incredible story of this woman that we went through all kinds of reasons in our head as to why people didn't like her. And in the end, we decided she just wasn't very likable. And I kind of liked that because it was interesting seeing how my mind was going to every sort of single place to try and work out why I didn't like her. And I thought, oh, I just don't like her. She's not a very nice person. But she wasn't the worst person in the world. But she was just, yeah, she was
maybe
just one
she
of
was,
those.
because it's called The Worst
I
Person.
know. But we both sobbed in the cinema. It was a beautiful tale about death, about relationships, about unrequited love, about the search for love, about the terrible impact that a father can have on their daughter's future relationships. Do you remember how awful her father was in it? And we ended up loving it. I really did. The first 5-10 minutes, I was like, oh God, I'm going to hate this film. And it just turned me around. And I've never forgotten those scenes around the death. I've never forgotten that. And sometimes when I'm moaning on about life, I remember, and we often quote that line, don't we? All I want to do is just hang out in my apartment and just potter around one of the characters that is dying. And it just reminds us that, it reminded us, and we had lots of conversations after this film about the beauty is in the small things. What are we reaching for? When we're reaching for the stars, maybe the stars are here.
My number 2 is Nope.
Oh!
Because I just fucking love that film so much. And I thought so many people were just so unfair with it. I don't even understand the hate that Nope got.
I didn't know it got hate.
Yeah, everyone's like his worst film and all this.
Oh, his worst film.
Yeah,
it's true, I did hear
but
that.
they're all just so different that I would never even really compare his films to one another. They give you completely different things. But Nope, I don't know, it's just the one that stuck with me like
Oh,
the
wow.
most. Out of all the films, it just stuck with me the most, and The Watch was just so like. It was just so, I mean, again, it was traumatizing and so shocking and so just like, what the fuck am I watching?
It was horror, really.
It was, yeah, no, it was proper horror.
Yeah.
And I just it just gave me everything that I want from horrors all the time and don't get. And I can always trust Jordan Peele to give it. But I honestly, I think it's probably my favourite of his 3 films.
Yeah.
The whole monkey like storylines, just ridiculously horrifying and just traumatizing, and the alien itself, and I just thought it was such a like clever alien film as well, because I remember at the point, because with the trailers, obviously I was so desperate for a Jordan Peele film, so when I knew that it was a Jordan Peele film, I was like, oh my god, well, I'm going to love it regardless. I'm not going to allow myself to not like it. But I was slightly put off by the fact that it was an alien film, because they all become really kind
you
of
weren't
just...
that enamoured with the trailer, were you?
I
thought the trailer kind of fell off.
Themselves.
Yeah, I would
I'm
say
not interested in a
alien film. And I would say that the trailer does not sell it enough at all. And I kind of like that, because it went in with not too many expectations, which always helps. But yeah, it was such an original way of doing an alien film, and I thought the alien was so like, I just loved the design of it, because it was really beautiful, and you could go like, which I did with the trailer, UFO, like how basic and how like unoriginal. But the fact that that was its body and that was the living thing itself, it wasn't the actual like space. I just thought it was a brilliant film, and I
also thought the spaceship shape was both the director and the alien being ironic. Because that's how we see
And even when they
spaceships.
did the little play on like those kids, you know, the first time we see the aliens that are like in his in the stables, and he's terrified, he's running away from them, and we think, I was kind of like, oh no, why are they going to show us, like, if they're going to be aliens that look like aliens, that's really disappointing. And then we find out they're just kids wearing masks trying to freak them out, and the actual alien is the spacecraft. I don't know, I could talk about that film for hours and hours and hours, but I loved it, and it's my number 2.
My number 2 is All Quiet on the Western Front.
Oh, you got this one. I thought you were acting surprised.
I thought this was, I mean, 1917 was one of our, I think was our favourite film of 2020. And I thought they're 2 very different films. And I think 1917 was a more, in a weird way, romantic film about World War I. And in a slightly weird way, because it followed they both followed one person, but 1917 very much was locked into the POV of one person. And I just thought this film was really moving, horrifying, hopeful, depressing. I thought the performances were astonishing. It reminded me of the worthlessness and the loss of life, and you know, it didn't shy away from just showing us the sheer horror, which I think we all forget. I think you're right, it's given an extra sort of piquancy because of Ukraine and all that kind of stuff. But I just thought it was a beautifully shot, cleverly, and at times contemplative. And I thought, you know, little touches like at moments of great drama or awful things having happened, it would cut to a shot looking up at the trees, and you were reminded that whilst this human horror was playing out, the world was kind of disinterested and was just carried on. You know, that moment with the fox with its baby cub. Moments in it that were really surprising to get in a war film.
This is your number 2.
Number 2. I think this deserves the best foreign picture Oscar.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think it is the hot favourite at the moment.
Yeah.
But I just think I'd love it. I mean, I know it's hard to kind of schedule into a young adult's life a 2-hour film about World War I. But
No,
it is,
I mean, I love
so moving.
1917.
It's so moving. But it's moving in a non sort of gloomy sort of way. And a reminder that the enemy is human. Our perception of who the enemy is in a war is not all of the enemy are to be shot and killed. Do you know what I mean? They're humans. They're made of flesh and blood.
And I love the way that we sort of see everything through his eyes, and he doesn't understand what he's seeing until he does. And then as the audience, we're horrified with him. I thought that was so clever.
The trauma of youth and the World War I. It was just amazing. It gave me goosebumps all the way through. So we're up to our number 1s, guys. I'm going to lead because we've talked about this. My number 1 is The Banshees of Inisherin.
Oh, really? Is that your top 1?
Yeah, I just...
Don't blame me.
I can't fault it.
I
I can't fault it. And even on a second viewing, the end, which I found a bit cranky, I kind of thought was quite poetic. It was kind of... It was, and a couple of our Irish followers said, no, that's the way an Irish story ends. It's kind of like they're still in the same sort of place. That they were at the beginning. I thought Kerry Condon was an absolute sensation.
Standout.
Brendan Gleeson, Colin Farrell's eyebrows alone were just sensational.
Deserve their own.
Barry
The
Keoghan,
horseman's
I think
eyebrows.
Maddie, you summed it up. It's just the way he writes. It's spare, it's minimal,
Funny as hell.
it's funny, it's targeted. At first,
bad.
sometimes you think with the way he writes, you think with this few words, it shouldn't be this clever.
No, it should be this funny.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly,
I
yeah.
thought it was atmospheric, it was mystical, it was about friendship, and it was about that taboo that friendships can run out of steam.
Yeah.
You know, friendships can run aground like relationships do, and what happens at
Or
that
that friends don't like, and also I feel like people think that losing friends and all of that feels and matters so much more when you're younger, but it's like, it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
as heartbreaking
Yeah.
if you lose a
Yeah.
friend. You know.
Absolutely, and for me, it also really spoke to me as a 50-something man about that existential, what is the point of me? From a male perspective, although there's a lovely line
Yeah.
from Kerry Condon where she says, "You're just boring men on a boring island talking about boring things," and it's kind of true. But to the man who's feeling these things, it's very important.
Yeah.
And it was horrific, and it was atmospheric. And Barry, it was just for me, it was an all-round perfect film.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really was.
I
And I
thought-
loved how I was jealous of how like simple their life was.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
just wake
You wanted
up.
to be in the pub.
Yeah, no, but I just loved to kind of just like, we wake up and at 2:00 we go to the pub and then we
Yeah.
stay
Yeah.
there until
Yeah.
when we go back. Like,
But also the fact that he was on the edge of, I mean, he had to sort out his life, and he was on the edge of not wanting to make the older character, what's he called?
Brendan Gleeson.
Brendan Gleeson. His art has suddenly it's become an issue, and although he was, you know, he did love Colin Farrell, he had to sort that out. He had to do what he had to do, and in typical Martin McDonagh fashion, it was extreme.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
Which I love. He's not afraid of horror.
and you
No.
loved the scene with the priest, you know, the scene
Oh,
with
the
the
priest. When he starts saying "fuck you" and
Yeah,
"fuck this," and
yeah.
fuck, I just
Yeah.
love the Irish. I just love you.
Yeah.
Nadia, what's your number one? Oh, licorice pizza.
Oh,
How was it
wow,
number
Licorice
one?
Pizza's taking.
Oh, this was just such a joyful movie. I think it was it quite soon after the pandemic? I don't
It was
remember.
right at the
Was
beginning
we
of
just been freed?
2022.
Had we
Yeah.
just been freed?
We'd just come out of a Christmas that was like Omicron.
I don't know whether it was my first time in the cinema.
I think it might have been.
It was. So it had all of that. You see why marking films is very difficult, because it so depends what's going on in your life. But oh my God, I loved every single thing about this film. I loved the era that it was set in. I loved it was shot on
35 mil, yeah.
35mm, wasn't it? Which gives this lovely
Grainy effect.
grainy look to it and takes us all back to a time when we all believed everything was perfect, but obviously it wasn't. I just loved the characters and the young boy, what's his name? Cooper Hoffman. I just couldn't believe him. From the first minute he was on the screen, I was just like, I was blown away by him. This 15-year-old entrepreneur, very plain.
Yeah,
I remember loving the fact that everyone was incredibly plain in it, the central characters, weren't
Yeah.
they? But we fell in love with all of them, which cinema has to pay more attention to, because it was these incredible characters. And I think it's so important for young people to see young people on the screen that aren't just like this perfect Hollywood look. Do you remember at the time we questioned whether they weren't put on the poster because they were too normal looking?
Terrible, isn't it?
Yeah. All those brilliant cameos, Bradley Cooper and the like. I mean, just so hilarious.
Oh, Sean Penn.
Sean Penn. Oh, I've forgotten about the Sean Penn scene with the
Right.
motorbike.
What about the agent? Where she sits there and they go in, she goes to the bar. Probably the greatest
Oh
single
God!
headshot.
We did at the time. We said it's the greatest small part ever. Was she? Is she put up for the Oscar for supporting? We said at the time we thought.
Oh, I
she
don't
would
know.
win
No,
an
I
Oscar.
don't think she has been.
So it's just joyful, and I was just saying to our daughter, to Maddie, we have to all sit down and watch that again.
Thanks for throwing that report, Nat. Have we had your number one?
No.
Maddie's number one.
My number one is
Hey!
wow.
I
As
literally
well.
cannot fault. I mean, the same with Banshees, but I literally cannot fault this film at all. And I would probably go as far as to say it's in like my top 3 of films I've ever seen.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I
Great.
honestly loved it so much, and like I just thought his performance was amazing, and it was so clever because although he was heartbreaking and I felt sorry for him and I cried a lot in the film for him as well. I still didn't feel like it was insensitive to like the victims
Yes.
of the guy in real life. They didn't
Yes.
kind of romanticize him to
No,
the point where
you're absolutely right.
I would still hold him, for what it is that he did. But I just think it's so important to see all of the like nobody is just one thing,
No,
and
exactly.
and not everybody is born as that thing. And it was just so heartbreaking to see all the things that just like each time something happened to me, just a part of him would just kind of snap off, and
Yeah.
he would slowly fade away with each kind of hurdle. And I just thought his performance is like, well, everybody's performance in it, but like especially his performance was just so like beautifully done.
Yeah,
And there was
it
just this
was.
fragileness to him that was
I love the
just-
way you use that phrase, a piece of him would snap off, because
Yeah.
that's exactly how it happened. You know, that
Yeah.
moment when he was talking to the kids in the car with his dad, throwing
Yeah,
fireworks.
yeah.
Do you remember that?
And because it was that like you could see that he was not wanting to be a threatening person, but he couldn't help but seem it to other people.
Yes, yes.
And you could just see, like, just in his eyes. This is why he's such an amazing actor as well. You don't have to say anything; just in his eyes, you could just see all of the stuff he's trying to battle in his own head. And, then
And the
just find
calculations,
such-
you're right, the calculations he was making about what people thought of him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can see him being like, this is not what I'm meaning to make them feel, but I can see in their eyes how they're feeling about me right now. And yeah, it was just, the whole thing was so heartbreaking. It was not an easy watch, but,
This
and
is
like
your
I
number
said,
one. Yeah.
and like I said as well, even the last sequence, how clever it is to just not show us what it is that he
Yeah.
actually did.
Yeah, take us up to
And the matter of factness of when he did it. And I think I said in our review as well, which was kind of like, I felt like it was trying to show him committing suicide as well in its
Yes.
own way.
Yeah.
The matter of factness of it, the way he set up the camera, he seemed at peace with it. He kind of just, you could see that he was just so far gone that it just didn't make sense as to what he was doing.
Yeah,
yeah.
So
No, I agree.
honestly, just one of the best films of all time in my opinion.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's my top.
Good choice.
Good choice.
Mum.
Number one. Well, going back to what Maddie said earlier,
Oh, is that
Wow,
your
is it?
number
Yeah.
one?
it's my number
Oh my
one, and it's
God.
been number one more or less since
It's not
we
even
went
in
to
my
saw
top
it.
10.
I've seen it 18 times. Obviously, I'm joking. But I've seen it 3 times. But I just think it's extraordinary. And
It
the
is.
bit, I mean, a lot of people said it's not. I mean, I would class it as a sort of horror stroke science
Yeah,
fiction
I would
film.
too.
Yeah,
I think
but a lot of people have said, oh, it's not neither one of those things. But
Yeah.
the bit where the craft first appears, or the sound system, or whatever it is, I found truly terrifying.
Yeah, no.
And
that
I was literally
awful.
taken over all my senses. And I've never ever felt
I don't
that
get
before.
people that don't think it's a horror. It's
No.
because it's just like not horror.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's
Or
like
that
genuine
he's not
horrifying.
doing enough, or that he's not saying enough. I
Yeah.
thought the rhythm of it was just wonderful. You know, like that guy filming it, and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
he was such a strange guy.
Weird guy.
And then the sister Kiki.
Yeah.
I mean, I just
They were
thought
just
it was the
brilliant.
most amazing film, and that was early on in the year, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
Came out, and I went to see it a bit later.
Well, it was in the summer.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I honestly think I think it's a perfect film, and I'm, you know,
I
it
agree.
sounds weird to say that, but yes,
No,
that's
that's
number
your
one.
number
Oh, wow.
Fantastic. Well, there you go. That's our top 5. We're going to just quickly run through on another film, the things to look forward to in 2023. Tell us what yours are. Tell us what your top films are,
Yeah, you
please.
have to tell us.